Morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the world that you're tuning in from. My name is my presentation this morning is from J.P. Guildford's 1950 APA address to Please Ask, a Creative Connection. So basically, this is the anniversary of J.P. Guildford's APA address as president of the APA in 1950. Just a couple of brief points on the address. The address was groundbreaking because it was the first time that creativity was taken seriously, so to speak. And Guildford wanted to persuade his audience, the audience who was mainly comprised of psychologists, and he wanted to persuade them about using the strength of using creativity in education. And to be frank, he used the word appalled. He was appalled that creativity didn't take a center stage in things, right? Also, what struck me about the address that was very interesting was the importance of the address. He addressed it to the psychologists in the audience, but what was really powerful is that the APA is not just a group of psychologists. As we know, it reaches beyond that, as we know as an entity that governs the educational field and how we do citations and research. So it was a groundbreaking speech. So to Please Ask. So Please Ask, basically, it's a heuristic that I created. It was a core part of my phenomenological research. And basically, this particular heuristic addressed a complex problem, which involves article use before proper nouns in English. So basically, proper nouns in English are nouns that begin with capital letters. And articles that can be used before proper nouns in English include the definite article the, or no article at all, which is called the null article. So basically, what's the connection between the Guildford's APA address and Please Ask? Well, in Guildford's address, he had some students and they performed an exploratory study using factor analysis. And basically, Guildford, they were able to, in the study, extract 9 factors indicative of creative abilities in people. It just so happened that these 9 factors were also a kind of backdrop as to how I creatively came up with Please Ask, right? Because basically in the field of English as a second language, which I teach, there's no rule set that governs when to use these types of articles before proper nouns. So I had to resort to an alternative means to come up with an answer. So basically, these 9 factors serve as a backdrop, and they're not in any order. It was an iterative process that I used. So the first one is sensitivity to problems. So I, as a practitioner, as a facilitator, a teacher of English, had to be sensitive to the problems that students had. Yes, they asked me specifically about this question, but I had to also be sensitive to it. My 14 years in the field, students from various countries, and my multilingual and multi worldly experience enabled me to be able to connect with students, to be able to feel and understand the questions that they were having. Also, in becoming sensitive to the problem, I engaged in self-talk, self-dialogue, meaning I asked a lot of ontological questions. What is teaching? What is pedagogy? What is this grammar? And also epistemological questions. How does this grammar really work? How do we really use this grammar as native speakers? How should I teach this grammar? And also existential questions. Why am I here? Why am I a teacher, etc., like that. All of these collectively led to my philosophical approach to teaching, which is basically, if I had to sum it up, it's a constructivist, pragmatic approach, practical approach to teaching. So Ideational fluency is the second factor, or creative ability. To the top of the screen, you see an example of some proper nouns. Some of them have the, some of them have no the, thus we have the complex problem. So basically, in order to attempt to find a solution, I had to use creativity. Below the line, you see some ideas that I came up with at first. So maybe I said to myself, maybe I can use 2 sentences or a list of phrases, or maybe 1 page of grammar notes to help students, maybe some type of abbreviations or acronyms, or dual coding theory. And I highlighted dual coding theory because that stuck out at me. Dual coding theory basically is a theory that states that figurative mnemonic devices maximizes the possibility of retaining information, and that struck me, very hard. So I stayed with that. Now I have the span of ideational structure, and I started to come up with more ideas, leading to like a flow, Csikszentmihalyi's flow. So again, what I did, I took a piece of paper, I wrote down as many proper nouns with the correct articles as I could. And again, at first it was an impasse, but then I noticed something. There was an impasse because I just looked at each proper noun by itself. But when I started to look at the proper nouns and English language as a system, and I looked at English language as a system, and then proper nouns as a system within the system, and basically what I did was use systems thinking. And systems thinking is a way of thinking that it takes something that's complex and it acknowledges constituent parts in the system. And by looking at the interrelationships between and amongst the constituent parts, patterns will arise out of the chaos. So that's what I started to do. I started to look at the interrelationships between the constituent parts, in this case, the proper nouns. And I started to see patterns, leading to the third one, reorganizing and redefining. And I started to come up with these acronyms that represented categories in English that we do not use definite articles. We use the null article. So these are just some of them that I did. Okay. But at this point, it still didn't feel settling because this was converging and this was diverging, and I had to come to an answer to show them. And I didn't feel quite ready that this was the solution. So flexibility of set. With this creative ability, patience is essential. I had to be patient and come up with a divergent set of solutions en route to converging to one answer. Don't just start off with one answer. So I had to be patient and let what needed to come out, come out. And this is what came out. Ideational novelty, something novel, something helpful, novel and fitting. And for my research and for me, that's what I defined as creative. And I came up with please ask. Now, basically, 2 slides before, I had all of these clusters, okay? And basically what I did was, the cluster that stood out at me was PASK. That was a cluster that stood out at me, okay? Now, basically in this situation, I'm sorry, I should have done the slideshow. I'm sorry about that. But basically what I did with PASK, right? I said to myself, okay, I see ASK, that's the word ask. I said, I'm on to something. Because if students see ask, they see a word, they can connect to it on a deeper level. So I just had P, and I came up with please ask. So with please ask, I thought of it as a way that students can connect to this mnemonic, this acronym on a deeper level. So I ran with this. Synthesizing and analyzing. Now, with this, I had to change my thinking. Traditionally speaking in ESL, we're trained as teachers to analyze, not synthesize. Because I was looking at an answer to the problem from an analytical viewpoint, that's why I couldn't see it. And that's why we as facilitators can't see it, right? So basically with analysis, We're going from the whole and breaking it down into parts. But in this case, it doesn't work because the whole in this case represents a rule, a grammar rule, and you break it down into parts, but we don't have a rule. We already have the parts. The parts are the proper nouns themselves. So that doesn't work. So I had to change my thinking and somehow go from the parts back to the whole. And that's what's represented by synthesis. So the left and the right on this chart represents a change in thinking. So for example, the left side, in coming up with please ask, I use synthetic thinking. I use constructivist framework to approach the problem. I used inductive reasoning. And for anyone that's, that's quantitative people in the audience, this was an inverse problem, right? Going from, right, having your observations Y and trying to find X. Where on the other side, we usually have, in a mathematical problem, we have X and we go to Y, and that's called a forward problem. So on the right, we see analysis, positivist, deductive reasoning. So this represents a switch in perspectives to come up with an answer to give students. And this was really powerful. Lastly, or almost lastly, was ability to evaluate. So basically, the first time that students asked me this question was approximately 10 years ago. So since then, that amount of time served as a kind of beta stage that I was able to try the heuristic out and see what works, see what doesn't work, and hone the heuristic as best as I could. That's one form of evaluation. The second form is my research. I was able to conduct a phenomenological study on students' perspectives and opinions on please ask. And it was very promising. It was very positive as a whole, or overwhelmingly positive as a whole. So the actual please ask heuristic. So we see please ask at the top. This is the please ask heuristic model. The please ask model comprises 3 parts. You have please ask here, you have limb falls here, and then you have of, which I call the descriptive of here. So basically this whole model is basically what we as native speakers, we know this naturally, but we just don't know how to pull it out of our subconscious. So using creativity, I was able to pull this out of my subconscious to show to students and let them know, okay, this is what we think and know naturally. If you follow this, then you can feel what we feel. So basically, please ask. Each of these are categories. Again, if a proper noun falls into any of the categories, you use the null or no definite article. So we use no definite article for names of parks, park names. We use no definite article for names of airports in English. We use no definite article for names of streets in English. And last, K, right? K and C have similar pronunciations, especially when C comes before hard vowels. A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U. A, O, and U, I'm sorry. A, O, and U. C is pronounced like K. In front of E and I, it's pronounced like S, especially in Latin based languages, in English as well. So I made 3 C's, right? So the first C in front of cities as a whole, we don't use any definite article. We use the null. In front of country names as a whole, we use no definite article. And in front of colleges, now, this is a constructivist perspective. It's built creatively. So for this heuristic, college means any school, institute, college, university. Also, any for-profit businesses and churches. All of that is in colleges. I explain to students there's a connection with money. In the West, churches can be looked at as a business that makes money. You know, it's arguable about it, but, you know, it is what it is. For-profit businesses make money, and so do education. College education here is astronomical, right? So that's please ask. Now, in addition to that, we have proper nouns in nature. Most proper nouns, 95% of proper nouns in nature, it takes the. The only ones that take no the is this one. Look at this sentence. Because of the storm, a tree limb falls. Limb falls. I'm sorry. With an L. In front of lake, name, no the. In front of island, island, no the. In front of M, mountain, no the. In front of beach, B, no the. And in front of falls, no the. Interesting to note, falls is always plural with proper nouns in English, right? No the. All of the rest of them are singular, If they're plural, then you use the, only singular. So, the 5 Great Lakes, Lake Huron, no the. The Hawaiian Islands, Jeju Island, no the. Mount Rushmore, 1, no the. The Himalaya Mountains, plural, you use the. Beach usually is singular in English, so we don't use plural with beach in English anyway, right? And then last, the descriptive of. You'll notice, just like here, you could say class teacher, but you can also say the same thing and say the teacher of the class. With proper nouns of English, whenever there's of in the proper noun phrase, we use the. It's called a descriptive of because it acts like an adjective, right? So for example, People's Republic of China, even though it's a country, I said country, no the, but because there's of, we use the People's Republic of China, right? And that is the end, comes to the end of my presentation. And I thank you all so much.